Sairam, good morning, dear children. Today I am just continuing the same lesson, the ancient civilization. This is class 6th, subject social science, part 5 and chapter 4. So in part 4 I have explained to you about the Mesopotamian civilization and their political history. Now I am just briefing up. So the Sumerians were responsible for one of the first civilizations in this region. Ur, Kish and Lagash were the important city-states that flourished here. And Sumerians used cuneiform system of writing on wet clay slates. I have told you the meaning of cuneiform. Cuneiform means it's a wedge shaped and it's a triangle form of writing. So the Sumerians used the triangle form of writing on wet clay slates, and the Mesopotamians were in contact with Indians. The Akkadians ruled after Sumerians and they were conquered and destroyed by the barbarians. Later, Amirotes, another Semitic tribe, ruled from Babylonia. Semitic, I have told the people who speak the ancient language like Arabia, and they brought the Akkadian state under their control and established a large state. So this is part 4. So in part 5 I am just continuing the same political history of the Mesopotamian civilization. So Hammurabi. Hammurabi, he was the most famous king among Babylonians. So Hammurabi was a famous king among Babylonians. So he was famous for his code of laws. So Hammurabi was famous for his code of laws. So his code of laws is based on ideas like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So what does this mean? An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That means if someone does something wrong, so that person will be punished by having the same thing done to them. And if, for example, if one fractures another person's eye, so he will also get fractured in the eye in return. Understood? So an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That means if someone does something wrong, that person will be punished by having the same thing done to him. For example, if one fractures another person's eye, he will get fractured in the eye in return. And if someone fractures another person's hand, then he will also get fractured in the hand in return. So this is the meaning of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So Hammurabi was the most famous king among Babylonians, and he was famous for his code of laws. And his code of laws based on ideas like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So I told you, if one fractures another person's eye, then he will also get fractured in the eye in return. So this is the meaning for an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So the Babylonian rule was followed by Kassite and Hittite races who ruled for some time. And the Babylonian rule was followed. So after Babylonians, so it was followed by Kassite and Hittite races who ruled for some time. And Asurbanipal. So we have understood about Hammurabi, and now we will understand about Asurbanipal. Assyrians defeated Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia. So the Assyrians defeated Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia. Asurbanipal was the last great king of the Assyrians. So Asurbanipal was the last great king of the Assyrians. So he was a brave warrior and also a poet. So brave warrior. So warrior means a person who fights in a battle. A person who fights in a battle, like a soldier. So Asurbanipal was defeated Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia. Asurbanipal was the last great king of the Assyrians. He was a brave warrior. Brave warrior means he was a brave soldier and also a poet. He founded a royal library at Nineveh. So he founded a royal library at Nineveh. So where is Nineveh? So Nineveh is the oldest and the most popular city of the ancient Assyrian Empire, situated on the east bank of the Tigris River, that is in Iraq. So Asurbanipal founded a royal library at Nineveh. So Nineveh is the oldest and the most popular city of the ancient Assyrian Empire, situated on the east bank of the Tigris River in Iraq. So Asurbanipal defeated Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia, and Asurbanipal was the last great king of the Assyrians. He was a brave warrior, means he was a brave soldier, and he was also a poet, and he founded a royal library at Nineveh. And next, so Nebuchadnezzar. So after Assyrians, another Semitic tribe, the Chaldeans, re-established Babylonia. So after Assyrians, so another Semitic tribe. So Semitic, I have told you, the people who speak the ancient language like Arabia. So after Assyrians, another Semitic tribe, the Chaldeans, re-established Babylonia. And Nebuchadnezzar was the greatest king among them. So Nebuchadnezzar was the greatest king among them, and he created hanging gardens. So he created hanging gardens, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So Nebuchadnezzar created hanging gardens, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So hanging gardens. So these gardens were built by king to make his wife happy. So the hanging gardens were built by Nebuchadnezzar because to make his wife happy, because she was homesick for the plants and gardens of her homeland. So she was homesick, so for the plants and gardens of her homeland. So for that sake, Nebuchadnezzar built the hanging gardens to make his wife happy. And this is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Finally, about 2500 years ago, Emperor Cyrus conquered the city of Babylonian, which resulted in the downfall of Mesopotamia. So after 2500 years ago, Emperor Cyrus conquered the city of Babylonian. So this resulted in the downfall of Mesopotamia. So I think you have understood this. Now I am just summarizing the whole video. So Hammurabi was the most famous king among Babylonians, and he was famous for his code of laws. So his code of laws is based on ideas like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I have told the meaning of this statement. And the Babylonian rule was followed by Kassite and Hittite races who ruled for some time. And Assyrians defeated Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia. Then Asurbanipal was the last great king of the Assyrians. He was a brave warrior and also a poet, and he founded a royal library at Nineveh. After Assyrians, another Semitic tribe, the Chaldeans re-established Babylonia. And Nebuchadnezzar was the greatest king among them. And he created hanging gardens, which was one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. I think you have understood this. So I'll be asking you some of the questions relating to this video. So who was the most famous king among Babylonians? Who was the most famous king among Babylonians? And what was his code of laws? So what was his code of laws? And who was the last great king of the Assyrian? Who was the last great king of the Assyrian? And who founded the royal library? Where? Who founded the royal library? Where? And who created the hanging gardens in Babylonia? So who created the hanging gardens in Babylonia? So go through the video, understand it, and try to answer all these questions. Thank you. Sai Ram.